Well, also with us is Hugh Hendry, who's a hedge fund manager, co-founder of Eclectica Asset Management. I was pretty interested, Hugh. You went into food and farming in quite a big way, didn't you, a few years back, just when it was becoming ultra fashionable. Maybe you were ahead of the crowd, I can't remember.
Yeah, I always have an ambition for preceding the crowd, and the event that I think you're reflecting upon is we launched a unit trust which invests exclusively in agricultural shares which are found in stock markets across the world, so producing seeds or fertiliser or indeed potash, one of the nutrients for farming. But that work had begun at the turn of the previous century, where we were looking upon agricultural prices such as corn, and they had lost 90% of their value in real terms.
But there was a huge surge in agricultural prices, summer of 2008.
Yes.
You must have been thinking how prescient and clever I am, but then it all came crashing back down again, didn't it? That really did seem like a bit of a false...
That's absolutely correct. Of course, it wasn't in isolation. I had hoped that there was a diversification, having been so miserable for 25 years, that it could tread again an independent path. And really my bet is I'd rather be invested in agriculture than in banking as I look towards the future, if you will. The pronounced rally that we've seen in wheat and latterly in corn has been a function of the weather, but also it's caught out the speculators. They'd given up on the spirit and the adventure of the summer of 2008, and of course that's created a more promising pricing environment once more.
You talk about these speculators like you're not one of them. I mean, you're a speculator, because actually they've been in the news as people who maybe have been causing fluctuations in food prices, and
Indeed.
the kind that really affects
Well,
lives.
I clearly, of course, would just ask for some consideration to the positive aspects of speculation. If we're going to have 1.3 billion Chinese people having an income that we enjoy today, then that is going to place enormous burdens and strains on agriculture. And to incentivize people, we need higher agricultural prices. So myself and the actions of other speculators could encourage people to invest in the sector and therefore remove this vulnerability to capricious weather conditions. There are economies that are based on market share, and
China is one of them.
China, as you say, they've pursued market share at the expense of profitability. Now the problem with that is periodically you have periods of overbuilding because you're not allocating resources according to profit. It's according to a higher level of sovereign prestige and power, and you become vulnerable because periodically you overbuild and there's a financial reversal. And when I look at China, again, it's fantastic at generating GDP growth. It grows its economy at like 10% each year. But is that the creation of wealth? Because if I build speculatively, if I build a commercial property and I engage Atkins to design it for me, and I buy all of that steel, all of that carbon, if you will, I am, without a doubt, enhancing the GDP of China for that year. But if I'm delivering a vacant office property into a city with a vacancy rate of 20%, I'm destroying wealth. They don't go together at times.
Hugh, do you pursue market share sometimes? Do you try and... You're just more interested in the margin and the...
I am reassuringly expensive.
Well, that's a cracking...
But actually, when I think, I think the pricing of hedge funds is changing at the margin, and our pricing is changing. And I think where the greatest change is necessary is that the performance fee is actually only realised when the investor takes the money out. Yeah, because there's a difficulty. You have a great year, you take the profit, and then the following year, you lose the money. Well, the client's just paid you and then you've just given it back. Yeah. So you're not aligning the interests of the investor with the manager. And we've taken steps to address that. I used to work for a very large pension fund group, and so we met with all British companies, if you will, and you were looking for excessive jewellery. A bow tie wasn't necessarily a good thing, and we had a marketing company at the time, if you will, back in the go-go 1980s, and there was a marketing group, and they had their board, and they were all wearing dicky bows, and they took a picture of each person to represent an element of a bar chart to show sales each year. And so one executive would be leaping in the air, another executive would be leaping higher in the air as sales went higher and higher. That business went bust. Yeah, it's a good indication.
I wonder whether business people, though, whether they lack critical faculties then, because there does seem to be a pervasive tendency towards literature in the business world that is of mediocre quality. There seems to be...
Everyone wants to be popular, right? And we need to re-educate people. No, but this is it's the lure of being popular. You know, it's deemed to be, this is what I should do, then people will like me. I will be successful. We have to encourage people. Popular. This old-fashioned notion of the misanthrope. Misanthropes are good, you know. People that say things which others don't want to hear. You have to challenge all of the time, and yet we have a society where we don't want to hear. I would say to you that the truth today has become unpalatable. We are confronted with a very, very uncertain financial future. And again, if we hark back to the political debate, everything is organised to kind of stop people talking about the truth.
Are there any other business faddy ideas, Hugh, that you think which constitute sort of nonsense which people are sort of latching onto at the moment? I mean,
corporate social responsibility.
Corporate social responsibility.
I think is a fad that's been around a long time. Rarely do you see stuff that's written that really reflects what the company does, particularly when recessions happen. You know, everyone can be nice when they're growing and there's profit laying around and they're not shrinking. Do you have the same values when you're firing people? That's the test.
There's a lot of greenwash as well, isn't there?
Most of the
phony green.
Most of the stuff written is actually stuff that's enacted by law, not because people have voluntarily done it. Okay, so they wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't enacted by law.
Hugh would say he doesn't want them to do it voluntarily if it means higher costs. He only wants them to do it when
but
sent to jail for not
Hugh
doing
needs the good conditioning of a firm regulatory framework for him to behave well, obviously. That's clear. He needs those parameters to give him
I know why I'm sitting in the middle.
Again, you know, the financial sector.
Really grumpy.
The financial sector was the most regulated part of the economy, and it still failed. And it had the wrong form of regulation. The most effective form of regulation is if you make errors, you threaten your jeopardy. In fact, you go out of business.
Yeah.
If you have regulation which doesn't have that threat, you might as well not have the regulation.
Totally agree.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. Thank you to my guests.